Hey everybody, and Tony here, and the moment has come once again. It's my top 25 favorite Rugrats episodes, and I'm sure you already know the formula. The first part is for entries 25 to 11, and the second part is for entries 10 to 1, at basically the final 10. Now, I'm fully aware that there were also some voice actors and voice actresses that also passed away during the during the course of the show's run. So do expect me to also get kind of emotional in certain entries. Now, with that said, let's begin. At number 25, we have What the Big People Do, which was a very interesting episode, if also for one scene, which was the climax chase scene. Now, the episode starts off like this. Tommy is very curious about Dee Dee's lipstick. Angelica is like telling Tommy and Chucky if they want to like play with it and all that. And then Angelica tattles on Tommy and Chucky. Dee Dee scolds them. And then Angelica states that, okay, you can't use these type of things because that's for big people or adults. And she pretty much is a bully to them as usual. And then Tommy and Chucky have shared dreams of their lives as adults. Like, they drink coffee, they read the newspaper, they drive, only to get stopped and halted by Angelica, who's this time a police officer, thus giving them a ticket to watch the Reptar show. And then they proceed to go to this huge office, in which a lot of, well, grown-ups in their mind are like sorting papers and even like running around like sorting papers here and there until Tommy and Chucky get called into the boss's office, only to be revealed that it's Angelica, looking pretty demonic as well. It doesn't help the fact that she also has gargoyles on each side of her table. And especially when she has her mini monologue, oh my goodness. It's like the presence that she has in here is rather scary. And it really kind of frightened me when I was a kid watching it. Besides, I would have been more frightened if I would have watched this ever since I was 5. Well, I first watched this when I was 8, and I was like, damn, that scene was pretty scary. I mean, it doesn't help that the gargoyles also breathe fire, and it also doesn't help that Angelica has her trademark sinister laugh, and then she orders the senior citizens in the paintings to capture Tommy and Chucky, and then she orders her robots to capture them. And then it was basically just a dream, and Tommy and Chucky are rather relieved. And then it's not until that Angelica pops out of the curtains to say that it's time to play house, and then she goes back into demon mode, thus scaring the crap out of Tommy and Chucky. So why did I place this very low on the list? Well, for one thing, Angelica does not get her comeuppance whatsoever, and she basically places the blame on Tommy and Chucky over, well, Dee Dee's lipstick. I thought that was a bit of a letdown, but still, the creepy atmosphere, especially when Tommy and Chucky enter Angelica the boss's office, I thought was just well done, and the tension used in this episode was just thrilling. And not to mention that climax. Hoo boy, that climax before Tommy and Chucky wake up. I thought it was just well done and had the appropriate amounts of scares, which can really show you just how creative these people really are, especially when it comes to the thrills and scares. Number 24, we have The Legend of Satchmo. Basically, it's the baby's way of saying Sasquatch or Bigfoot. So basically, Grandpa Lou, Chucky, Tommy, Angelica, Phil, and Lil are camping outside the backyard. And Grandpa Lou proceeds to tell them the story of the Sasquatch and how he terrorizes campsites and terrorizes all types of nature forms as well, and how he leaves a huge foot as basically a sort of trail as well. And, well, the babies are kind of scared as well and want to sort of like meet this Sasquatch, known to them as Satchmo. Angelica decides just to let them go on their own, and then she smugly just sleeps inside the tent. So the babies think they've seen the Sasquatch, but it was actually Stu. The poor guy has basically been wanting to get back inside the house on at midnight after being out the whole time, and then he finds himself like stubbing his toe on a garbage can, and a lot of hijinks ensue. So basically, this episode was a lot of fun to watch, especially when it came to Stu's hijinks, and especially when it came to the thrilling story of the Sasquatch, which was pure win for me. Number 23, we have the very first episode that Rugrats aired, and that is Tommy's first birthday. Yeah, Tommy's first birthday was the first episode that Rugrats aired, and this also marked, as probably to those who've watched it, a very strong impression on those who became fans of the show. It starts off rather simply as Stu and Dee Dee are planning for Tommy's birthday. Dee Dee taking a lot of tips from Dr. Lipschitz on what cake to bake for him, what games they should play, the entertainment section in the form of a puppet show, and Stu with creating Tommy's gift, which is basically like a hovercraft that, well, is sort of like a space hovercraft and like flies around the house with a flick of a button. So Tommy's friends Chuckie and Phil and Lil come in as well to celebrate the festivities, and even Tommy's cousin Angelica and his uncle Drew. So basically, a lot of hijinks ensue since Tommy also wants to have dog food as well, since he also is quite interested of how it tastes like. Because he thinks that, okay, Spike can eat it, and he thinks he can do whatever he wants and all that, and he wants to try it for himself. So this leads to a climax in which, well, Tommy, Chucky, Angelica, Phil, and Lil, like, try to get the can of dog food, and even, like, with Chucky using, like, Stu's gift for Tommy, which is the hovercraft, to also aid in getting the dog food. Well, Phil and Lil kind of also help their parts as well, but oh gosh, a lot of hijinks ensue. And then, well, even Boris and Minka come over. And, well, let's just say that the episode ends rather sweetly with Angelica, Tommy, Chucky, Phil and Lil trying out the dog food. And at first, they felt like it was a funny taste. But they kind of get used to it, and they basically act like dogs at the end of the episode. So overall, this was definitely a great introduction to a really great show. Number 22 is Let Them Eat Cake, in which we have the wedding of Ben and Elaine, who are basically a couple in this show and have also been seen in another episode in like season 4 or 5. So Elaine is rather nervous because of her upcoming wedding, because she doesn't really know what on earth she's going to say, where is she going to go when she gets married to Ben, and she feels rather scared and nervous, and she's not so sure what to say or what to do, and she basically confides in Tommy and Chucky that, oh, she'd love to tell them her true feelings, oh, she'd love to basically be the wife that Ben always wanted. And I thought this was a very sweet and very down-to-earth episode. It does show that sometimes with people, when it comes to their weddings, it may be a happy moment for them, but at times it's kind of uncertain of how it's gonna all end, and they're kind of uncertain about their futures, and that's what I kind of felt with Elaine. But the ending was definitely a very happy ending that left a huge smile on my face. They managed to eat the wedding cake and basically had a lot of fun. So overall, this was definitely a very sweet episode that really does show that sometimes there are people in this world that can be kind of scared when it comes to weddings. And this episode really does show that in flying colors. Number 21, we have Garage Sale, in which the parents organize a garage sale, obviously, in which they feel like their house can't really hold up too much space, so they decide to sell things that they don't really need. And Grandpa Lou states that, okay, maybe some of Stu's inventions need to be sold, and many other things as well. The babies have this idea that, okay, this might be a garage sale in which, like, all the stuff in the house needs to be sold in order to have more space. The adults are extremely confounded and shocked by this, that this leads to pretty much one of the most bittersweet, yet very much calming endings that I've seen, with Chaz on the guitar singing Kumbaya and everybody else joining in, especially Angelica. So the biggest highlight was really the ending in which Chaz sings Kumbaya, a definitely calming ending and one that has really left such a huge smile on my face despite every chaos that has happened in this episode. So overall, what really made me love this episode is that despite all the chaos that the adults and babies go through, there was something that managed to bring them back to earth and just made me have a serene smile on my face when seeing Chaz sing Kumbaya on the guitar, and especially when everybody else joined along. I thought it was just a very sweet ending. Number 20, we have Family Feud. Now, this is the episode in which Chaz definitely showed some balls, and I'll explain later. This starts off with Stu playing a game of charades, and Howard, Betty, and Dee Dee can't really guess what he's doing, and basically Stu hurls taunts towards Howard, and Dee Dee basically feels that Betty doesn't have great tastes in certain stuff like that. Betty feels insulted, and Howard and Betty take Phil and Lil along, forbidding them to play with Tommy. And basically, with Phil and Lil taking turns of playing with either Tommy and or Chucky. This leads to one day in which the babies hatch a plan. Why not get the adults to pay attention to them if ever they ended up running away? So they go to some park, and the adults, well, they are basically bickering, and Chaz silences them and calls them off on their tomfoolery. And it was just a very great moment of Chaz, because usually you might think, oh, he's the nice guy. He's, simply put, nice to a fault. But this is the episode in which he definitely showed some backbone and really showed that he was no pusher. He meant business in that scene, and that's the hugest highlight for me. Chaz calling out Betty, Howard, Stu, and Dee Dee's bullcrap, and then basically saying that they should be more united and think about the children as well, because think about it, they're still babies. They might end up learning that type of stuff from them, and they might not end up being good influences to them either. So overall, this was definitely a great episode that really showed that Chaz really did have balls, and really one that I enjoyed even to this very day. Number 19, we have Superhero Chucky. Now, this was yet my favorite episode because, well, this is one of those episodes in which Angelica does get her comeuppance. So basically, we see Drew and Stu, Angelica and Chucky. Why on earth did Stu didn't take Tommy is way beyond me. Because usually you'd expect Chucky to go with his father Chaz, and Stu to go with his son Tommy. So, despite that one little head scratcher, it was still a very enjoyable first scene. I mean, Drew and Stu get to see their childhood hero, Captain Busto, voiced by Adam West. Now, for those of you who don't know Adam West, he was the original actor for the 1960s Batman, which was definitely a cult classic, and has proceeded to voice act and even act in several character roles. Well, most notably as the mayor from Family Guy, and even as Catman from Fairly Odd Parents. And once upon a time, in The Adventures of Pete and Pete, he was also Ken Schwinger, who was the principal of the school in the April Fool's episode, which was a lot of fun to see, mostly because Adam West was definitely chewing the scenery as Ken Schwinger. Oh my goodness. So basically, Adam West is a very superb character actor, which is also no wonder why he's basically a household name when it comes to TV acting and even to a lot of like the voice acting stuff that he did. So he's definitely a very commendable actor. So after that show, Stu and Drew, Angelica, and Chucky ride home, and Chucky is rather inspired by Captain Busto after a souvenir that he got from him, which was a globe ball. And then we see Chucky trying to emulate Captain Busto, and this is an episode in which we really get to see Chucky fight back, which I really enjoyed, though I did feel kind of sorry for Angelica after she got shoved on and then landed her butt on a toy fire truck. I kind of felt sorry for her growing up, though I guess when I was a kid I kind of thought to myself, serves you right, you big bully. Yeah, this was definitely an episode that I really enjoyed, even to this very day, because this really does show Chucky in pretty much a starring role and really shows that he can be capable of fighting back, he can be capable of facing his fears, even though he's pretty much the resident scaredy cat. So this definitely gave Chucky sort of an edge and really made me root for him in this episode. Number 18, we have The Case of the Missing Rugrat. Now, the episode starts off like this. Stu and Tommy are going home after some grocery shopping, and Grandpa Lou, finds out that there is this nice car, only to realize that, okay, he's left Tommy in the car, and he's basically driven off by a butler named Max, voiced by the ever-superb Tony J, who you all know as, well, in a lot of these deep, villainous roles. So, yeah, I also miss him as well. For those of you who don't know, he passed away in 2006, so this is one of those episodes in which I kind of feel emotional already, mostly because there's one voice actor that is no longer with us and manages to have a very superb character role. Well, this isn't the only role that Tony J voice acted in. He also voice acted as Dr. Lipschitz, which was a very fascinating character role and a very fascinating and very fun-loving character. He's basically the total opposite of the villainous roles that Tony J was very well known in portraying in, mostly because of his deep basso profondo voice. Or was it a basso cantante? Yeah, it's basically more of a basso cantante voice. The basso profondos are usually the ones that usually are more gravelly, but with Tony J's, it's a basso cantante. So, Max takes Tommy to this huge estate where he is basically the butler to two aging sisters, Clarice and Emma. I presume that Clarice is voiced by Tress MacNeille. Yeah, Clarice was voiced by Tress MacNeille. You can tell because she has, Grandma Gertie's voice in that as well. So basically, they take her to the two eccentric sisters who are, approaching senior citizenship, and they introduce Tommy to them, and they think that they could have a certain resemblance to their late father, who was a judge. And Grandpa Lou goes on this wild goose chase, questioning people where did they last see this gentleman by the name of Max. So basically he wants answers from them, he almost gets kicked out, and a lot of hijinks ensue, especially when it came to Tommy. He even meets a parrot who says, okay, he's also Tommy, and repeats whatever he says, and all that stuff, and he thinks he's made a new friend, but okay, he pretty much snitches him, and it also leads to another wild goose chase. And Grandpa Lou comes in, he introduces himself to both the sisters, and they even have a lovely chat with each other, which I thought was very sweet. The episode ends with the sisters saying goodbye, Bostwick, in which they basically christen him, and then Tommy proceeds to cross his arms first, and then have a huge smile at the end. I thought that this episode was just a lot of fun, full of hijinks and full of just a lot of fun, especially when you have stellar performances by Tony J and Tress MacNeille. So these were definitely superb voice actors, and one that I have a lot of fun with as well. overall, a very fun episode to watch, and one that I still watched with a smile on my face. At number 17, we have Stu Gets a Job, in which Stu manages to get a job offer as an inventor in a toy company, but Tommy feels rather unsure about this because that would mean that his father would end up, leaving the family in favor of the job in order to support the family and all that stuff. So Tommy, Chucky, Phil, and Lil do whatever they can to make sure that Stu does not leave Tommy. They basically switch Stu's clothes. They give him a lot of crap, especially replacing Stu's shampoo with honey. And when you see Stu walking out of the shower and dressing up in that outfit, he looks more like a disco star more than someone who's willing to work. And let me just tell you that the ending of this episode is very, very sweet. I mean, I know I use the word a lot, but there are a lot of sweet endings when it comes to Rugrats. And, basically, Stu decides that he's gonna basically, spend a lot more time with Tommy, and the most touching image is Tommy and Stu, playing with each other, and, and a lot of bubbles are, blowing in the room, which I thought was a very sweet image. So overall, this definitely solidifies Stu as one of my favorite fathers, because despite the fact that he didn't get the job, he knows that his priorities as a father is still there, and he knows for a fact that it's Tommy that needs him the most, and he knows that Tommy deserves to have a father like him around. Number 16, we have the word of the day, which was a pretty fun episode. This basically has Angelica wanting to see the show Miss Carol live. And, behind the scenes, Miss Carol utters a word that is sort of equivalent to profanity. And the running gag is that she says the word, and we hear some other type of noise, and we see what other people are doing outside the stage. And Angelica says it herself, only to make her mom, Charlotte, faint. This is definitely a funny episode, and this does also show the harsh realities of certain personalities as well. That they're not always going to be the sunny or overly optimistic people that you'll see every day. In fact, with Miss Carol, her personality on the show is that she is this smiley and joyous type of person. And then when you see her outside the set, she's basically mean and demanding, which kind of gets the attention of Angelica, but has basically blurted the word out. And Miss Carol gets fired. So overall, this was definitely a funny episode, and I first caught this ever since I was 8, and I still love it to this very day. Number 15, we have Grandpa's Date. This is also the episode that has also one of the most infamous images shown on children's television. That is when Grandpa Lou tells Chucky and Tommy that he has a sort of X-rated film starring a couple of space alien women. And people wonder why this didn't get past the censors. But this was definitely a very charming and very touching episode, as Grandpa Lou tells of his story of how he first met Morgana, who was a woman who he used to fall in love with, but now for several reasons have ended up breaking up. It's not until several years pass that, Morgana has returned, and she's basically happy to see that Grandpa Lou is now a grandfather. So overall, this was definitely one of my favorite episodes, because this does show who Morgana was, and I would have really loved to see a lot more of her. And she really seemed like a very fascinating character, because, when I see her, she seems to be very calm and very collected, and has a sort of air of kindness and sweetness around her, despite the fact that she's very well known for being such a such a calm person. And like I said, Morgana is definitely a very interesting character, and I wish I could have seen a lot more of her. Number 14, we have Chucky versus the Potty. Now, I really love this episode as well because, well, this also has one of my favorite scenes throughout the episode. So basically, what do you call this? Chaz is sort of in a panic as well because Chucky needs to be potty trained, and then it's up to Dee Dee and Stu to help him with that. Chucky is rather uncertain of it because he's not so sure of how he's going to feel about it. Angelica taunts him by using a lot of dirty tricks on him, and while basically taunts him saying that if he can't potty, then he won't grow up to be a normal functional human being. And then this leads to another creepy dream sequence in which Chucky is in jail, Phil and Lil are a couple of cops, Tommy is the priest, and their version of an electric chair is none other than a toilet. And Angelica is the executioner. And then, after Angelica laughs her ass off, she basically flushes Chucky, and this leads to a roller coaster of a water slide. I mean, I figured that this could have been an idea for a theme park ride at Universal Studios. But I don't know, maybe the idea was scrapped. But still, the dream sequence was very much a huge highlight for me and one that I enjoy watching to this very day. And, well, Chucky manages to get over his fear. He goes into the bathroom, uses the potty, and what do you know, Angelica has yet another comeuppance, in which she has an accident. Pretty satisfying if you ask me. So overall, this was definitely a great episode that I enjoyed to this very day, if also because of the dream sequence that Chucky got himself into, which was appropriately creepy and just very much memorable as well. At number 13, we have Grandpa's Bad Bug and Lady Luck, a tie between two episodes, because these two episodes were also the last episodes that David Doyle, the original voice of Grandpa Lou, voiced in. And these two were definitely such great send-offs. I mean, they could have been more profound, but they were basically a lot of fun, and at least they basically honored his legacy. Grandpa's Bad Bug starts off like this. Grandpa has this sort of habit of breaking his promises, meaning that he constantly goes out to play bingo. And, well, the babies, or basically Tommy, Chucky, Phil, and Lil, suspect that he's got something bad in his stomach, like a bug. They try to take it out, and Grandpa Lou realizes his wrongdoings, that, yeah, he admits that he's been going out a lot of times, and if he's wondering if he can, if he could, pay it forward and all that stuff. And then we have Lady Luck, in which Grandpa Lou goes into this old retirement home to play bingo, and the babies get themselves into a lot of hijinks. And they even meet this instructor who at first wants everything clean and organized, but then when she meets Grandpa and even the other senior citizens as well, saying that despite the fact that the babies caused a lot of chaos, they had a lot of fun, and they definitely enjoyed their time at the retirement home. So basically, the lady states that Grandpa Lou is, well, he should be very grateful to have babies like that in his family, and she's basically happy to have met him, and even Grandpa Lou's happy to have met her. The episode ends with the senior citizens doing a conga round, and we see the inscription in loving memory of David Doyle. So I thought that these were two fun episodes that really did pay good respects to David Doyle, and really were quite great send-offs. Not as deep like Mako's send-off in Tales of Ba Sing Se, but I thought these two episodes really honored David Doyle very well as the original voice of Grandpa Lou. At number 12, we have Family Reunion. The biggest highlight for this episode definitely is that we see Tommy encounter his cousins, who kind of look like him. You have Tony, the boy from Brooklyn, New York, who has a very typical greaser type of clothing and a thick Brooklyn accent. Tammy Faye, who is a Southern belle. You have Timmy, I presume, who is this red-haired Southern guy, and then Emmett, who is a big boy who is of also a Southern descent as well. So this was definitely fantastic because I figured that these were the only times that Tommy's cousins appeared in. Basically, Tommy and Angelica and Grandpa Lou go to a family reunion in Iowa, and Tommy meets up with his cousins. Angelica states to Tommy that you'll never see your family again once you're done with this reunion, and, well, her advice sort of backfires as well. So the biggest highlight was really seeing Tommy and his cousins really like getting to know each other better and just having a lot of fun. I seriously wished that Tony, Timmy, Tammy Faye, and Emmett could have appeared in more episodes because when you think about it, they're more than just cousins. I actually really loved their presence as well. They were just a lot of fun. I wish they could have appeared in the spin-off show All Grown Up. We could have seen how Tony was. We could have seen how Tammy Faye was. We could have seen how Timmy was. We could have seen how Emmett was, if only the show were better written. But still, despite that, I have to say that this was definitely an enjoyable episode that makes us see a lot more of Tommy's extended family, and one that has left a huge smile on my face. At number 11, we have Uneasy Rider, which is definitely a fun episode, as it also does show Chucky that also has an edge, and Angelica also introduces Chucky to this dirt bike racing competition and with the big kids, and he basically gains the nickname Chucker. And then he meets, another big kid by the name of Spokes, along with this friendly kid. Now, the biggest highlight for me in this episode was none other than Mary Kay Bergman as Spokes and the nice kid with the yellow helmet. Why? Because, if you put it into perspective, this is the role that she portrayed 1 year and 3 months before her tragic death. She even went on to play Timmy Turner before that on the Oh Yeah cartoon short, but just by listening to this episode once again, I just can't help but feel a part of me die inside because Mary Kay Bergman was a voice actress that has really meant well to me, and, this was also one of her last roles, so it's like I could never, hear Spokes talk again the same way because obviously he was voiced by Mary Kay Bergman, and every time I would play the chorale for Snow White, I could easily imagine Spokes crying his eyes out when he noticed that his voice actress passed away. So this is definitely another emotional episode for me because this is yet another episode in which I'm also kind of mourning for a voice actress as well. But still, it was a very fun episode, and I could tell that Mary Kay Bergman had a lot of fun in this role as well. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune into part 2, aka the final 10. Until then, see you later, everybody.